Welcome everyone. My name is Chris Edkins and I'll be your worship associate for today. Welcome to Westside Unitarian Universalist Church. We are an institution where who you are and the values that you embody in your everyday life are the more important than the specifics of what you believe. We gather together to support each other and to serve the wider community, and we recharge ourselves here on a Sunday morning so that we're ready to take our light back into the world and to be a positive force for good. So if you're here in person or you're joining us out there on YouTube right now as it's streaming or at some time during the future, we welcome you to this community. You are a part of it. I'd like to draw your attention to announcements that are in your order of service. I haven't been asked to draw attention to anyone's in particular, but does anybody have any additional announcements to make? Okay, then in that case, I think we shall ring the singing bowl. Is that right? Chalice lighting?
Gathering music.
Oh yes, of course. We're going to sing together. We're going to sing Come, Come, Whoever You Are. It's very, very simple, and you don't need your hymnals. And I think the choir are going to come up and help lead it as well. But it just goes like this. I'll just let you know. We're going to sing it twice through, just straight off. It goes like this. Come, come, whoever you are, wanderer, worshipper, lover of living, as is no caravan of despair. Come, yet again come. So if you'd like to stand and join in, and we'll sing it together through twice.
Thank you, everyone, and thank you, Sandra. I love hearing you play. So my name is Morgan Ringelspaugh, and my pronouns are they, them. From the moment I decided to do this service, I knew I wanted us to sing that song, and it'll come back into play a little bit later in the service, too. There's something just very Westside about it. It was one of the first songs I heard when I started attending services, and it holds a special place in my heart. The version in our hymnals has taken 2 lines out of the original poem, which was written by the Turkish-Persian mystic Rumi. The full text reads, "Come, come, whoever you are, wanderer, worshiper, lover of leaving, it doesn't matter. Ours is no caravan of despair. Come, even if you have broken your vows 1,000 times, come, yet again come." Later in the service, we're going to circle back to those lines, but for now, I ask that we just think about it for a moment. Ruminate on it, if you will. Whether you are in the room with us right now, roughly 11:04 on a Sunday morning, October 13th, or if you find this later at some undefined time. Perhaps the time is the same, but you're joining us virtually. I see you over there, and I do have you guys pulled up in the YouTube, so I see you, and I'm so glad that you're here with us too. I ask that we come into this moment, whatever moment this is for you, and settle into this time and this place, knowing that you are worthy, that you are loved, that you are so important, and that you are here. In just a moment, Chris will sound the bowl as we think about this a little further. Thank you. Last week here at Westside, we dedicated our new chalice, and Reverend Carroll spoke about the chalice as a symbol of our faith. To be honest, I had written some notes from last week's service so I could kind of incorporate them and have an ongoing theme, make some profound overtures and such. But when I sat down to finally put words on paper, or on the screen as it is, I realized those notes were no longer where I thought I had placed them. Never fear, Reverend Carroll's service is still available on YouTube. You can go back and be inspired as well. For our purposes today, the chalice can be a sign of loving community, warm hearts open to those in need, and the fire of commitment to our values. As we light the chalice as part of our service, it reflects that inner warm and fuzzy feeling that we get in the presence of loving community, cute animals, and really good food at potlucks. Our chalice lighting today is a poem that honestly makes me teary-eyed just looking at it, and I'm actually kind of okay with the fact the author isn't here to look at me as I read it, because I will cry. It's written by our very own H.P. Rivers, and it's called Sometimes. My friends' kids get new crushes. Sometimes they get new names or try them on, and I am happy to oblige, quite content to be a quiet anchor, loving and loving every blessing of their becoming, all the ways they live and learn. Look, kid, back when we were a fresh 15, I talked your mom out of much worse names for you than you could ever choose for yourself. It's okay if it's a phase. It's okay if it isn't, too. To be honest, I never loved your name. We've always adored you. The name I use when I pray for you don't change who's on the receiving side. Heck, I reckon they already knew I was wrong the whole damn time. Over the past several weeks and months here at Westside, we've shared our stories with one another, and today I'm humbled to be able to share my story with you. Some of you may already know this story or may know parts of it. Some of you were there for it. And those of you who are new friends, well, you're getting the full Morgan experience all at once, so buckle up, Buttercup, it's gonna be a ride. Today, I stand before you as a 31-year-old non-binary individual who has a strong passion for mental health and learning how all of our previous interactions with one another in all spheres of life, in all ranges of scale, shape us into the people we are today. If we've ever sat in a religious exploration class together, you may have heard the story of my spiritual awakening and my journey in healing some religious trauma. Today, I'll be sharing the story of my life in a more concrete, bare necessities kind of way. I'll warn you now, I do use humor as a coping mechanism if we haven't figured that out already. So please feel free to groan or giggle when the bad jokes inevitably slip out. I was born here in Knoxville and raised in a Southern Baptist household. My parents were each other's second marriage with one older sister apiece. We didn't, and mostly still don't, refer to anyone as a half or a step sibling. We were a family is family kind of people. My mom was the administrative assistant and director of children's ministry at the Southern Baptist church we attended. My dad literally built the youth group room and played Jesus in the Easter services. My grandmother and aunt attended most Sundays with us, and some of the church ladies, capital C, capital L, church ladies, were like additional grandmas and aunts to me. To this day, I have not found a peanut butter fudge better than Miss Elaine's. Each summer, from the time I was 8 until about 12, I attended a local sleepaway camp, a Bible camp here in Townsend, not far away from us, with some of the girls my same age. There is a lot to be said about the impact this church had on my life, both positive and negative. It was my first look at what spiritual community was supposed to be, though I'll admit I definitely had on some child-sized rose-colored glasses. When I was in middle school, my parents got a divorce. By this time, my dad's oldest daughter was living full-time with her mom, so it was me, my other older sister, and my younger sister moving to Carnes with my mom. Unfortunately, when the divorce was announced, my mom lost her job at the church, and we were politely asked not to return. You know, it's bad when the whole room goes, "Oh no." I thought that was an okay part. All right. Overnight, my community was gone. I went through my middle school years really angry and upset at the world. And sure, I was a preteen in that weird transition of time where the internet was easily accessible, and yet social media wasn't really a thing. But even so, I think I was a pretty moody kid around that time in my life. When I got to middle school, I had one friend who I spent a lot of time with, and her family became my family in a lot of different ways. As we approached the 8th grade, my friend ended up changing school zones, and I was left alone again. Looking back at that time of my life, I was a lonely kid without any kind of community around me who knew what community looked and felt like. My mental health was not great I found a journal of my angsty poetry, and it made me weep for the baby Morgan. Kind of not great. The summer before freshman year started, I saw a post, either on MySpace or Facebook, I don't remember which. A fellow freshman was transferring in from another school system and was looking for first day of school buddies. That's me. Hi. Yes, that's me. Pick me. I've always been a fan of the buddy system, and if I didn't have to do the scary part of asking someone to be my buddy, they're gonna do it for me, even better. I had found my high school best friend. Some of you will know Helen Rivers, a member here at Westside as well. That was my high school best friend. We would walk to class together and geek out about the vampire novel we both were inexplicably obsessed with, and spend lunchtime just goofing off, being kids, being silly. They taught me the absolute best snacks to this day. It's gonna be pretzels and cream cheese icing, poured over, microwave it, thank Helen later, it's delicious. And Helen was just kind of there for me. Thanks to this friend, I was surrounded by friends and people for my first year of high school. I felt kind of like that adjacent kid. I was friends with my friends' friends, but only had a smaller number of friends who were actually friends with me. Still a pretty lonely kid, desperate for any positive attention I could get. Our sophomore year of high school, things got a little off track. By the end of the fall semester, I was fairly certain I was pregnant. I'd had this twisted notion for some time that my purpose in life was to make a husband happy and bear his children. And sure, that was forever away, but this was teenage love, people. Of course I'm gonna marry my first boyfriend ever. So one fateful day in the high school bathroom, Helen stood outside the stall, lovingly chastising me for all of my poor decision making. At the time I took my pregnancy test, I was already 3 months pregnant. So like we knew, right? I was 15 years old, 3 months pregnant, scared out of my wits. I remember taking walks after school around my grandmother's neighborhood, wondering what in the world I was going to do. Abortion had never been an option in my family. And as a quick aside, I do want to say how strange it is that the only thing stopping me from an abortion in 2009 was my own religious beliefs and the fact that I was already 3 months pregnant. We got a little outside that time zone. And now, in 2024, abortion is legal in the state of Tennessee. So that's one less option kids exactly like me have now. For me, I knew adoption was also out of the question. As my mom had put it upon hearing the news, having this baby was the consequence of my own decisions. Never mind that I didn't have the sexual education or emotional self-care or training or anything to know how to navigate any of this. In the end, I decided that the only thing I could do was work as hard as possible to get the best grades and do the best I could for this small child. It never really sank in that my dreams of going to college were going to be a little bit harder. I actually applied to Harvard at one point, thinking I could move to another city and raise a kid by myself, go to Ivy League school. It was a lot and a little delusional. Without the best grades, my PhD in history and teach at other universities because, like I said, it never sunk in that those dreams were gone. I was convinced I needed to just work harder, and those around me seemed to say the same thing. I remember some of my English teachers, I would ask them for an extension because I'd been up all night the night before, slept through calculus class, and oh, we had an assignment? Oops. And she told me no, that my poor decisions, my actions have consequences, and there is no grace. You just have to work harder. Looking back, that explains a lot about my personality and who I was for a long time. I went back to high school 3 weeks postpartum, started right into my junior year. I admittedly don't remember much of my junior or senior years. I was running on gas station coffee, very little sleep, and struggled with what I now know was postpartum depression. Sometime in our junior year, Helen and I had a falling out, and all of my other friends had fallen away during the pregnancy. And just like that, I found myself alone again. My child's father and I broke up sometime in junior year. Luckily, he did stay pretty consistently in our kid's life, and we've been able to adjust custody schedules when needed without much issue. My mom and stepdad forced me to a few church services, but I always found the youth groups to be full of hateful teenagers who would literally call me a Jezebel and tell me God loves me, but not my sins. Very helpful. I was lonely for a long while. I did graduate from high school on time, and all of my senior pictures are probably my favorite pictures of my kid at that time. My aunt helped me attend the senior class trip as I thought it was my only chance to tour the world. I toured Italy, Austria, and Germany with some of my classmates for an unforgettable 10 days. When I enrolled at Pellissippi State Community College in the fall of 2011, it was with the intent to transfer to UTK, University of Tennessee, Knoxville, and tackle that elusive PhD. Somehow I still didn't get it. Around that time, I also found myself with an ultimatum from my parents. If I was going to stay there, I had to attend their church. Now, their church is a very fundamentalist, hee-hawing kind of church where you leave thinking that you're just going to burn in hell because you sneezed and didn't say bless you. Like I said, religious trauma had to do some unwinding there. So I was told if I were to stay at my mom and stepdad's house, I would attend church. If I refused, I was no longer welcome unless I had my kid with me. I began spending the night at the house of whichever dude I was dating at the time, or at my sister's house, or a few nights in my car in the parking lot at Pellissippi. I cannot illustrate enough how broken, unwanted, and rejected I felt in that time. I spent a lot of time talking with various people on the internet, forming somewhat close connections with my classmate. It's around this time that I stumbled into meeting my husband through an online friend. We chatted on and off all summer and grew closer in a whirlwind romance that's a whole other story for another time. My husband Brian moved the nearly 4 hours to rent an apartment with me here in Knoxville. Roughly 8 months later, we were engaged. In the spring of 2013, I took a study abroad course in Ireland, where I spent an amazing 3 weeks that led to my spiritual awakening. Again, that one was helped with my aunt and student loans that we're still paying back. I had begun to feel a tug somewhere deep inside of me, something that had been dormant for a very long time. When I returned home from Ireland, I felt like something was missing. I had spent 3 weeks with a close group of about 20 people. We'd have breakfast together, walk to the school, or go to our outing for the day. We would get together nightly at the local pub in town we were staying at, and the townsfolk would actually come play for us. The director of the trip apparently came to Ireland often, and they would just all get together and know they had to go play for John's kids. That deep stirring in your chest, the warm and fuzzy feeling you get when you feel the connection between people, I could feel it again in that back room at DeBurka's. Just thinking about it, I can almost hear the fiddle and the laughter and just feel good. When I returned home from Ireland, something was missing. For the longest time, I chalked it up to the magic of Ireland and the disconnection from that spiritual awakening I had experienced. And so time goes on. I'm still chipping away at my degree at Pellissippi. A classmate of mine reintroduces me to one of my favorite young adult authors, John Green. Some of his work includes Looking for Alaska, The Fault in Our Stars, and Turtles All the Way Down. John Green is known for his YouTube series with his brother, Hank Green, and they've both gone on to do some tremendous work for education with projects such as Crash Course or SciShow. The online community that springs up around the Green brothers is known as Nerdfighteria, and their fans are called Nerd Fighters. I see people like nodding and smiling, and it makes me so happy. The online community, these nerd fighters, have a mantra set at the end of every Hank and John video. Don't forget to be awesome. To paraphrase Hank and John, being a nerd fighter is a bit of a philosophy. We're not beating up nerds like it may sound, but we're rather nerds who are fighting to decrease world suck. Pick a thing that sucks about the world. There are a lot to choose from. Now, how are you going to combat against it, even if it's just something little? And can you get others in on this mission to decrease world suck? Just by being in this room, being UUs, having justice and generosity opportunities, you're all nerd fighters. Congratulations. Now, I know this was a bit of an abrupt switch. One moment we're talking about my longing for Ireland and connection, and all of a sudden we're doing a promo for young adult authors, their fan clubs, and their philosophies. Stay with me on this one. We're up to about 2014, just one short decade ago, which makes me feel old saying it. I'm longing for connection. I'm mildly obsessing over this author, and I seek out their online community. Nerdfighteria itself is a vast wilderness with its main Facebook group, a couple of spin-off Facebook groups, and then spin-offs of the spin-offs. So that humans, we're social beings. We like to pack ourselves off in more homogenous groups so we can easily relate to our people. And thus, I find a group called Nerdfighter Moms. As you may expect, Nerdfighter Moms is a Facebook group for those who are fans of the Don't Forget to Be Awesome or DFTBA mantra. and are looking to find small, practical ways to decrease world suck. This is not an advocacy group looking for political change. It is a bunch of parents trying to hold on to each other through this crazy thing called life. I joined Nerdfighter Moms in roughly 2014 and have met some of my closest friends through this group. It was a place for us to bring our daily commiserations, get parenting advice from one another, and cheer each other on in life. My husband Brian and I got married at the courthouse December 2014. I had dropped out of school at some point, content that maybe my purpose in life was just to work entry-level jobs and make a paycheck. For 3 terrible months, I worked first shift at a grocery store from 8 a.m. to 3:30, picked up the kiddo from his grandma's, slept for a bit where and when I could, and then worked from midnight to 7 a.m. at a call center. Around this time, my health started to go a little wonky. I had always had monthly migraines since puberty, but these were getting worse. I found support, comfort, and encouragement in my Nerdfighter Mom community. They encouraged me to advocate for myself when I would have shrunk away, and they were there to tell me when something just wasn't adding up right. I have had a certain friend telling me for 10 years I show all the signs of hypermobility, fibromyalgia, Ehlers-Danlos syndrome. 2 weeks ago at a doctor's appointment, my doctor was like, hey, we already know you've got fibromyalgia and hypermobility. Pretty sure you have EDS, but we can't test for it, sorry. So these people have been there every step of the way and been there to advocate. When I lost my job because of my migraines, it was one of my friends in the Nerdfighter Mom group who told me how to request ADA accommodations. Another member helped me find job resources in the area, and countless members reviewed my resume. Nerdfighter Moms was the first community since that first church that made me feel not just welcomed, but that people genuinely cared about me and my family. The community was there for all of the ups and downs for one another. Whether that was starting school or dealing with horrible custody battles, we supported one another, someone to talk to. We celebrated book launches, new businesses, divorces, weddings, house buyings, moving across the country or moving to a different country. It may have just been an online community, but these friendships are some of the strongest I've always had. And like a true community, we help out in more than just the emotional support kind of way. I'm not quite sure how or when it started, but one of the things the community did on a regular basis was called Pizza Angels. Imagine a time in your life where just absolutely everything was going terribly. Maybe the car broke down unexpectedly. You lost your job out of nowhere. The kids are sick. Maybe you're sick on top of it. You're at a point where the idea of cooking dinner is so tiresome, so overwhelming that you're struggling to get through the rest of the day. Or perhaps there isn't any food in the house. You're waiting for that next paycheck to hit. Food stamps haven't come in yet, or simply don't stretch as far as we want them to. We could do a whole service on the devastating effects of poverty, inflation, unstable income that doesn't cover the bills, and so much more. Never mind the perception around those who ask for help. Are they irresponsible? Not good mothers, not good fathers. Just don't want to buckle down and do the work. There's any number of reasons why it is so hard to ask for help. Nerdfighter Moms is a community where we understand life is hard and unfair, and we're all doing our best. And remember, there's this shared philosophy around the idea of decreasing world suck. For myself and so many others, this online community is where we felt seen and heard and understood. We felt comfortable saying, hey friends, is there any chance someone can help me with a pizza order tonight for me and my family? And more often than not, there was someone to help. The internet is an amazing place and resource sometimes. When someone in Australia can send them money or place the order themselves, so someone here in the States can get food and they can provide that small comfort. We may not be able to hug each other as often as we want, but we could send some help. Another way the Nerdfighter Mom community supported one another was through the Elves program that happened around Christmas. It was organized by a longtime member who saw how many of us struggled to make ends meet, never mind trying to provide Christmas for our kids, and we wanted to help. Allie asked if there would be any interest in an ELF program, where members of the community could adopt other families to provide some holiday cheer when we can. Those of us who needed help, roughly 50 or so families a year, would sign up with wish lists that they send to the elves. Sometimes the elf would reach out to the family, and sometimes it was a complete surprise who helped you until after the holidays. My family and I were on the receiving end for the 2017-2018 holiday seasons. We had moved to Cleveland, Tennessee, roughly an hour and a half from here, in the fall of 2017. One of my best friends at the time had offered for me to come live with her after my first hip surgery, which, yes, I've had 3 hip surgeries before the age of 30. At the time, this sounded like a great idea. At first, it was just me and Brian, my husband, it was just me, and then Brian and Anna came along later on, about 6 weeks later. Due to some other circumstances surrounding everyone's mental health, we ended up having to move into an extended stay hotel not long after being there. That year, in 2018, I struggled a lot with my own pride, my physical and mental health, and saw myself as a failure. My 3rd, 4th grader was living in an extended hotel. Someone I had seen as a best friend, a sister maybe, said some of the cruelest things to me in her own mental health struggles. I'd moved my family to another city for a fresh start, for community, for support, and now we are living in a hotel. As I said, I had a hip surgery in 2017 to repair a torn labrum, which essentially means I had been in horrible pain for about a year. It hurt to walk, hip would dislocate, it's a whole thing. Walking hurt, sitting too long hurt. I'd been out of work for a few months. My family needed me to go back to work, so I did. At the time, I worked in a call center that was across the highway from the hotel. The stress of the situation at home and with that call center, it was debt collection, so it was a lot. Ended up beginning to worsen my mental health and my migraines. Stress does that. Around this time is when I had the infamous 27-day migraine. I'd started seeing a new neurologist, and we were in the process of trying different medications to see what helps best. The newest one definitely did not help. I ended up receiving a lidocaine block into the muscles at the base of my skull, 2 rounds of steroids, 3 shots of heavy-duty painkiller, and a lot of praying to a lot of gods I'm not sure I believed in at the time before that migraine broke. At the end of it, I had been fired from the call center for missing too much work. It was the 2nd or 3rd time I had lost a job due to my attendance issues directly related to my health conditions. I was lucky to find a job at a different call center, but things were still a struggle. Thankfully, we were able to move from a small single bedroom where our kids slept on an air mattress beside the bed with us. We moved into a slightly larger suite that had a living room, a separate bedroom, and a walk-in closet. We ended up being able to buy Anna a twin-size bed from Walmart, and she proudly proclaimed herself to be Harry Potter, sleeping under the stairs in the cupboard. I'm not ashamed to admit how hard I wept over that whole thing happening. I felt like a failure. My kid is sleeping on the floor in a hotel. We're further away from family, friends, support, everything. Every other weekend, we would drive up here to Knoxville, approximately an hour and a half, for my kiddo to visit with her bio dad. I'd usually stay at my mom's house over the weekend and take advantage of their laundry machines. It is expensive to use a laundromat. By now, I had been calling myself agnostic for years. There was something out there, but I wasn't sure who or what or where or any of it. I still felt like my Sundays were missing something, and my mom's church was way too Southern Baptist for my liking. I had figured out I was bisexual some years ago, came home from Ireland knowing something about the old gods tugged at me, and I was polyamorous. Those three parts of me all have their own intricate stories and layers. It's just too much right now. It's almost like we are complex human beings with different layers and nuance and everything. I was searching for something just more. Around this time, I had looked up my high school best friend again and found that Helen had found community here at Westside fairly recently at the time. I'm 85% sure we messaged before I walked in here that first Sunday I attended, my heart nearly bursting at the sight of my best friend. She'd been who I had leaned on for the biggest changes in my life when I knew her, and I missed that kind of connection. As I'm sure it surprises exactly none of you, I was welcomed into Westside with open arms. The minister would come say hi to me when I visit and just check in, see how I was doing. Last week, Reverend Carol shared a quote from Albert Schweitzer as translated and understood by Dan Harper. I'm going to reshare that quote today. In just a moment, I need a drink. Okay, sorry. So I'm going to reshare that quote today. Again, this is Dan Harper's translation. Sometimes our light goes out, but is blown into flame by another human being. Each of us owes our deepest thanks to those who have rekindled this light. If we had before us those who have thus been a blessing to us, could tell them how it came about, they would be amazed to learn what passed over from their life into ours. I want to take a moment to tell you all how Westside, this community, blew that spark back into flames for me. Sometime in the fall of 2018, I came to a service where we shared joys and concerns. For those of you who may be unfamiliar with it, this is a time for us to just share with one another, give our gratitude for good things in life, share our sorrows with the community, things like that. I hadn't shared before. To be honest, I had terrible stage fright, very shy person, and was terrified to find my feet entering the aisle and my body moving towards the front. Before I knew it, I was asking for thoughts and prayers, unironically. And my tongue just going back to my Southern Baptist roots, I suppose, because we were living in this extended stay hotel. My child was sleeping in the closet. She was in the closet in a lot of ways for those who know her, but physically she was sleeping in the closet. And I didn't know how we were going to pay that week's rent. I stood up here and just said, please keep us in your thoughts. And then I ran back to Helen and cried into her shoulder. To the person who had first shown me love and care and what community could be, Reverend Carol asked me to come talk to her after the service, and many members of the congregation that day came up to me as well, slipping money into my hand like I was your own granddaughter, and it was some kind of secret. Don't tell Mom, here's $5. I was embarrassed, and I tried to give it back. And I was saying, no, it'll be okay. Don't worry about it. We've got it. It's all right. And as a community, Westside said back, "You're not alone. Let us help." By January 2019, we had found a trailer 2 doors down from my mom. Westside helped us with the expenses of the move, getting us where we needed to be so that we could have support. Where I had found community and love and someone to finally tell me I was enough. More than that, I had found a community who told me every Sunday how glad they were to see me, how I have this inherent worth and dignity, that I am deserving of love simply by existing. I didn't need to prove myself or make the right decisions or be good enough. I didn't have to just try harder. I just existed, and I was loved. I shared earlier how I absolutely adore the expanded version of "Come, come, whoever you are." Even if you've broken your vows 1,000 times, come, yet again come. All of the failings I thought I had, all of the times I messed up, the Sundays I wasn't here, or the phone calls I didn't return, the emails I didn't return, all of that was met with a grace. And everyone said, "Still, come. When you are here, we are happy to see you whenever that may be." Now, I'll be completely honest with you guys. This is the end of the service that I had already written. Everything else was written in the 30 minutes before church. And if this had happened before, just a few years ago, I would have been panicked. I would have come into this room freaking out, going, "Oh my gosh, I've let everyone down. I didn't finish my service." But I knew it would be okay. I knew, and I had faith that the words would still come out of my mouth. I do have a few notes here and there. And I knew if I walked into this building without it being done, it would be okay, because my community is there for me whenever I need them, however I need them. My community would still accept me because I was here. I am here, and I am loved just as you are loved. Here lately, I've been thinking a lot about Maslow's hierarchy of needs. In order for us to feel love and have close connections with one another, we need our basic physiological and safety needs met, right? Food, water, rest, shelter. Then we can move on to safety and security. Once those are met, we can have those emotional connections, those feelings of confidence and accomplishment. Then there's that self-actualization. We can actually chart the ways I've moved up through those hierarchy of needs here at Westside. In the past few months, I've realized how much has changed between that time in 2019 and today. A few weeks ago, I was standing in an Old Navy dressing room, panicking a little. I had realized all of a sudden I had confidence. I went clothes shopping by myself, which may not sound like that big of a deal. Good job, you're an adult. But for someone who struggled with an eating disorder in high school and never felt that comfortable in my body to begin with, this was huge. I wasn't having a full-blown panic attack because the clothes didn't fit or the size was larger than I wanted. I realized the difference had actually been me wearing a certain shirt that day, because it was a shirt designed, again, by H.P. Rivers, by someone who I knew loved and accepted me for who I was. And just that reminder of having someone who loves and cares you that much, cares about you that much without you needing to do anything. I had confidence, and that was weird. I realized that I had surrounded myself with this loving community and reminders of them. My favorite shirt, the one I'm wearing today, is the one I reach for when I'm having a rough day, because it reminds me of the person who designed it, that awesome little kid who's going to grow up and do amazing things. When I'm scared and alone, I find myself humming a song from our hymnal. I actually have one of our hymnals at home and will occasionally leaf through it to find my favorite songs and just sing by myself, because it gives me that feeling of being in this room again with everyone here, with Westside. When my grandfather passed, I remembered the kind words from members of this congregation, and specifically, I remembered a conversation I had with David Howell about the joys of growing older and settling into a peace, and that gave me comfort that maybe my grandfather had found that peace too. When I was ready to go back to college, at the time we were doing a series where it was like a grassroots, choose your own service kind of thing, and we would write a prompt or a question about what we wanted to have a service on, and then various members of the worship team would come up here and answer the questions. And I had asked, how do you know when you have found your profession, when you have found your calling? I've been considering something, what would you suggest? And I remember Suzanne Molnar answering the question, telling me, when you can think about the worst parts of that job, or what you think the worst parts of that day is going to be, and you still choose to do it, there's a good chance you should look into that and follow it along. That just kind of cemented my decision to go back to school and get my bachelor's degree, because I cannot think of a single part of being a therapist that would be bad for me. I love it all. So every time I see or hear of Ellen Greenwood's travels abroad, I can't help but smile and think about what a beautiful place we live in, a beautiful, diverse place with the opportunity for us to travel once we get to that spot. Westside has been here for me growing into myself, discovering I'm non-binary and joyfully accepting me and changing my name. Westside didn't just blow a spark back into a flame, but ignited me into being. Now, all of this emotional connection and growth and bonding and self-actualization only happens when we have our needs met. A couple of months ago, I had approached the board about adding Awesome Found as a Share the Plate partner, and that's how this service was born. Remember that Nerdfighter Moms group I had talked about earlier? Well, they're still an important part of my life, and I'm so grateful to have the opportunity to pay it forward and help those who had been in the same positions I was in just a few months ago. Last Christmas, the ELF program helped nearly 100 kids have Christmas. For a long time, we had discussed as a community in Nerdfighter Moms how we could make a nonprofit organization to help make Pizza Angels and ELF programs and all of the other needs that we had. How can we help each other better? And that's how Awesome Found was born. More than just a super cool name, it actually stands for Aiding with Essential Supplies, Outreach, Motivation, and Empathy. Their website, awesomefound.org, shares that they are an organization where we fight to decrease world suck, one helping hand at a time, where community comes together so nobody needs to feel alone. Community members in need can submit a form describing their situation and what they need help with. Sometimes it's grocery requests or help getting a birthday cake for their kiddo. We've seen utility and rent assistance requests. Often the individual just needs an empathetic ear and connections to resources in their area. Maybe they need some motivation and accountability and support in all of the same ways this community supported me. All of the care and support given to me by Westside is being offered through Nerdfighter Moms through the Awesome Found organization. This quarter's Share the Plate partner is Awesome Found, and 25% of undesignated funds given will be directed towards Awesome Found. The money will be used to directly assist with the myriad of requests that are listed on the screen or over here on the wall. I keep forgetting we have that. We're fancy now. So, if you are willing and able to give, please place your contribution either in the box at the back of the sanctuary, or you can use your mobile phone to access the QR code if you're super fancy. All of this self-actualization and growing and coming into yourself and feeling safe and secure and confident and able to do things like bare your soul in front of everybody and talk about yourself for far too long is only possible when you have those basic needs met. Westside helped give me that support and that love and that grace to mess up and still be okay. And we have an opportunity to give back, and I think we should. Of course, there are other justice and generosity projects happening here at Westside. I don't think we had anybody who wanted to come talk. Does anyone want to share your justice and generosity for your group? Okay, well, you can find out more on the newsletter that is sent out or our website. I know we've got the Green Sanctuary Committee doing things. We've got the Hurricane Helene efforts are still ongoing. One of the things I love most about Westside is being able to help one another, not just in the emotional, spiritual care, but we're there for the other pieces too. So, like I said, I ran out of time, so I don't have an official closing, but I know that's okay because it's all going to be okay when you're here. So Chris, if you have the benediction.
I do, and thank you, Morgan, for that wonderful talk and for baring your soul to us. It was quite inspiring. Thank you very much. It's our tradition here at Westside that if you wish and the person standing next to you wishes, that you could stand and hold hands. If you don't want to hold hands, you can hold your own hand. That's perfectly okay. No problem. There's no pressure. So if you don't want to hold hands, hold your own hand. But if you do, then you can join and make some kind of a shape. Oh, sorry, I'll let people just settle. Are you ready? If here you have found freedom, take it with you into the world. If you have found comfort, go share it with others. If you have dreamed dreams, help one another, that they may come true. If you have known love, bring some back to a bruised and hurting world. Go in peace. Thank you.
That was great.